Welcome to today's Tech Solutions session, Adapting Campus Recruiting for the New Normal. It is my pleasure to turn it over to our session presenters.
Thanks so much. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And as I do that, I thought we could do a couple quick introductions for myself and Amanda, and we will go ahead and kick off right away. Excuse me, my name is Dina Taylor. I am Vice President of our Solution Architect team, and I am responsible also for our global sales PMO. I work with here at HireVue. I've been here for 7 years and thrilled and delighted to have partnered with Amanda throughout that journey. And my team and I work really closely with employers throughout the globe as it comes to how they leverage the HireVue technology for a variety of use cases, particularly in campus hiring, since we're talking about that today, and what those best practices are, what some of the trends and challenges we see them go through, how they can best use our solution in order to really maximize their results and returns. And certainly delighted to be a part of the discussion today so that we can share some of our learnings and some of our observations with all of you. Amanda?
Hi, everyone. It's great to be here. I'm Amanda Hahn. I'm our head of product marketing. And what Dina also neglected to mention was that we actually both come from the recruiting space. So aside from our experiences, both in marketing and on the sales side, both of us actually started our careers in recruiting. I actually started very specifically in college recruiting many years ago. So this is a community as well as a topic that's really near and dear to my heart, and going to be talking a lot today about, like Dina said, our solutions for and our solutions that we work with our customers on, as well as a couple of new offerings and extended partnerships on the campus side. So that's one of the things that I'm responsible for here at HireVue, is really working with our campus partners. And we have a couple of new offerings that we're excited to launch today.
Awesome. So just in terms of agenda, we've got some great content built out that Amanda and I are really going to toggle back and forth on and share our perspectives, our observations, our sort of experiences with the customers and campuses that we've been working on. And so we'll talk a lot about sort of the system that's out there and opportunities that exist in order to make some adjustments that will better students as well as employers, recruiters. We'll share some success stories that we have with our customers. We're going to focus on one in particular, a really great customer of ours that uses a few different components of our solution and the types of results that we've seen. And then Amanda will really wrap us up and talk a lot about some of the great work that we do directly with universities, as well as some new offerings that we are launching very, very soon. So we all know this, right? And it's really interesting. I think one of the weird benefits about the pandemic that we've gone through over the last several months is that this is very much a shared experience that we have all had. No matter where we live in the world, no matter what we do for a living, the events of the last few months have impacted all of us directly, and all of us have stories to share when it comes to what these experiences have been on. From a campus recruiting perspective, the playbook's done. And so the experiences that employers and universities and students have gone through, it means that the legacy, the traditional, the comfortable way of recruitment, which really has involved on-site recruitment career fairs, just can't happen any longer. And so that's the circumstances that we're in. And what we've observed and what we've seen from our customers and what we're strongly encouraging is to not let this completely throw everything out the window. It forces you to redesign that process and make sure that we can pull what has worked really well from previous processes and experiences and redesign them, reimagine them, and redeploy them in a way that will realize even better results than what we have seen before. And so the best way to do that is to think about your overall objective when it comes to campus recruiting, right? So what is it that we want to do? We want to hire the best talent, and we want to hire the most diverse talent across multiple locations and multiple universities. That's always been the objective, regardless of what the process or technology has been. And so historically, you've only been able to go to a couple of schools or campuses or university. And today that's not possible at all. Has been a historic attention focused on grade point averages and grades. And it's this year more than ever, that's less of an option simply because universities have switched over to either a pass-fail system, or the grade that was issued in March happens to be the grade that graduates are getting, regardless of any additional opportunity they might have had to change or work harder in order to change that grade at the end. And, there's been this constant focus of focusing on the resume as a primary screening method, even though we all know that people in general, and graduates in particular, are so much more than the bullet points on a resume. And when you're doing a compare contrast of students who have all graduated from similar majors, similar programs, taken similar classes, there's not a lot that will offer any differentiators on those students from that resume. It's really important to glean additional insight into who these individuals are, why they would add benefits, and why they would be a good fit for the roles that you're seeking to fill. So we know this has been the historic and the traditional process. We know that it needs to change. We also know that with that, there are very common challenges that our employers, our customers are seeing across the board. We might not know how many hires are going to be happening this fall or this spring, right? I think that there is a shared ambiguity and a shared uncertainty about how many people employers want to bring on board. But we know there's going to be a lot of applicants. We know there's going to be a lot of interest in those open positions. And with that, that means those applicant funnels are going to be huge. And they've historically always been big. This season, we anticipate that volume to go even bigger because there's so much uncertainty and so much interest in getting that job. We know that the fall recruiting season is likely to be virtual. We're keeping an eye on who's coming back on campus and who's not coming back on campus. But even for those universities that will have students on campus this fall, there will not be any large-scale events such as career fairs that would be hosted by the university. And how do you showcase your company culture? How do you have a meaningful conversation with a graduate to convince them to join your program as an employer when you're needing to be in a virtual environment? So those are all considerations to take. We know that those career fairs are going virtual, which really means a redefinition of the career fair in general. And we'll talk about that a little bit. Both Amanda and I have really similar thoughts on that. Like a career fair is historically a one-day event or a fixed-in-time event. And maybe it doesn't have to be. Maybe we can shift that terminology and shift it over into something different going forward. And finally, we know that the existing process just isn't optimized for all of those circumstances that we just shared. And so you cannot leverage the same recruitment process going forward. It's important, it's critical to reimagine that process and shift and adjust based on meeting all of those objectives. So we have a really great customer who has gone through this transformation. They did it pre-COVID, right? This was done before the pandemic hit. This was done because all of those challenges they were starting to see come on board, right? Lots of people, were interested in their open positions. All those people looked the same on paper. They really wanted to expand their candidate reach, attend more campuses, but there was not enough dollars in place or people in order to support those initiatives. And so it was friction filled. It took up far too much time from the candidate perspective as well as the recruiting and hiring manager perspective. And so it was with the use of HireVue that these three critical KPIs, among others, were addressed. And they're hyper-focused on the recruiting hours that were saved, the hiring manager hours that were saved, and then the outcome in redesigning that process with the use of our technology resulted in an increase of offers. So how did they do that? And this is really what that looks like. So before the use of HireVue, that row at the top, pretty traditional recruitment process, right? It was an online application through an ATS or a CRM, whatever the input would be. And then there were several assessments in a row. One was a legacy assessment, sort of a multiple choice experience. Another was an on-site assessment. Another was a case study assessment. And so they were asking grads to go through several steps in the process before they would even get to that on-site interview. When you peel it back and start to think about what the purpose of those assessments were, it was really to gain additional insight into who those candidates are. And we know that the best way to do that is to focus on their competencies, their behaviors, their cognitive skills, to best understand the type of behaviors and cognitive skills they have and how relevant they are to the jobs that they're looking to apply for. And so that's what we did. We were able to condense this process from multiple friction-filled steps down into just a couple. So the candidates, the grads, would apply online, right, for those open positions, those open slots they were interested in, and they would automatically receive an invitation to take a HireVue. And in that invitation, it's 6 video interview questions. And those video interview questions are designed to assess behaviors and competencies that are relevant for the job. Teamwork, negotiation and persuasion, communication, things that are critical for that new grad to have in order to be successful in this particular role. And then they would take 2 games, and those games are bundled together to form a game-based assessment that is giving some insight into this grad's cognitive skills, memory, numerosity, pattern recognition, again, things that are critical for the roles that they're applying for. Once they go through that experience, the recruitment team is then presented with a stack-ranked list of those grads. And so instead of having to weed through a list of resumes that all look pretty much the same, or focus on only candidate pools from 1 or 2 or 3 campuses nearby that are easy to travel to, they're now faced with this slate of candidates, these slate of grads that come from multiple campuses throughout the world and who have all gone through the exact same experience. They answered the questions in the exact same order. They were given the exact same amount of time to respond, and they were assessed objectively in a way that is without bias, that's friction-free, and allows for a super objective slate of candidates to be presented back to the team. At that point, the recruiters automatically schedule the top-tier candidates to come on site for an interview. Going forward, this will be done through a video interview using our platform, given the circumstances of today. Those middle-tier candidates are reviewed by the recruiters to make sure they're bringing any gems up. And then the bottom tier candidates are set aside in a pipeline for future consideration as they go through the overall, the recruitment class for this season. And it's because of this, because of the opportunity that we presented to condense multiple steps in the process and make sure that the recruitment teams were focusing their attention on the candidates that were most qualified for the job, they were able to save so much time and improve that offer ratio. So with that, we'll sort of pivot a little bit and talk about some partnerships that we've put in place and some opportunities that we've had as it comes to how we work directly with the universities and the students. And so with that, Amanda, I will go on mute and I will pass it over to you.
Thanks, Dina. So now we're going to shift a little bit and talk about how we are partnering with the universities, and then, obviously also benefit here for our employer customers and good information for our employer attendees as well, to learn a little bit more about what we're doing on the college front to help improve the process, to help give students better exposure, to help them better prepare to take virtual interviews for the coming semester. So we are really excited to launch. Oh, sorry, Dean, if you want to go back just one slide for a sec. We're really excited today to talk to you a little bit about a brand new offering that we have coming for this fall semester. We've had really good partnerships with a number of universities over the years to help their students practice the virtual interview, video interview process, to give them exposure to the process. But we've never really been able to do this at the scale that we've wanted to. So we worked hard through the past couple of months, knowing the kind of environment that we were going to be going into, that it was more important than ever this year to make sure that we had something that really scaled well for as many universities as wanted to take advantage of this process as possible. So we are excited to be launching today. Now we can flip to that next slide, Dina. Thank you. We're excited to be launching today this practice interview for students. The goal here is really to remove the barrier of the technology and preparedness with that technology and allow the student to shine through as part of their interview, right? So an interview is a life-changing experience, especially for a student. And we've always felt like across the board that was really important for us at HireVue to understand that critical nature of the interview. The last thing we want is technology to become a barrier potentially for that student as a part of the interview process. We want them to be comfortable with technology. We want them to be confident in their interviews. We want their best authentic self to shine through in those interviews. So we want them to be as prepared as they possibly can be when they go into an interview with a real employer, either for an internship or a full-time position. So this offering is an actual HireVue on-demand interview, and it's designed to mirror an actual mock experience with an employer. So we have it pre-populated with a number of video-based questions that are student appropriate, that elicit things like willingness to learn and adaptability and some other things that we find are pretty common across employers in terms of what they're asking students as a part of the experience. So there's a little bit of the sort of traditional tell me about yourself kind of content, and then we really focus in on some of the competency related questions that Dina talked about that we're working with a number of our employers to build into their process. So there's student appropriate sort of content in here, content that they'll be coming in contact with as part of the process when they move to a real interview. And then there's also some short gameplay. So we, over the past couple of years, have added game-based assessments to our offering. We know that there is varying levels of experience with games. A lot of kids today, a lot of students today have a lot of experience. Some have none at all. And so we want to make sure that that playing field is sort of leveled so that they understand the experience of the games going in. They know what it's like. They can see sort of the relevancy to their roles as part of that experience. We really want to make sure that not only the video questions, but if they're coming into contact with or they're preparing for an interview that includes these game-based assessments, that they have experience and exposure to those as well. So that was really important for us to build in as a part of the process. So they see examples of 2 of our games as part of this overall experience. Another important thing to note here as part of this offering, the student's data will not be used, shared, or viewed in any way, right? This is, so we take data privacy really, we put a lot of emphasis on data privacy at HireVue. And so we think it's really important as part of this experience that the student understands that their data is not going to be used in any way. So this is a single interview experience. It's for the student to be able to practice the process, for them to, again, to get experience with technology. And so no one is going to be viewing these interviews, and they're going to be deleted actually after 30 days. The student can come back and practice this experience as many times as they like. They can, take the experience over and over again a couple of times. They can skip the video questions and just go to practicing the games as part of the experience, but they can take it as many times as they like. And again, each and every time that they take it, nobody's going to be viewing their information. It's not going to be analyzed by HireVue in any way. And we make this really clear to the student at a couple of points in the process. So not only is it important for us to share that with all of you, but we know it's really important to share that with the student as a part of the process. So on the login page, we'll let them know that we're not going to be doing anything with their data. As part of the agreement that they sort of agree to as they come into the process, we also reinforce that. And then the communications that they receive from us, just a quick email afterwards saying, here's the link if you want to come back and retake the interview at any time and practice again. We also remind them that the interview data is not being used. So that was really important to us. Oh, did I forget to mention as part of the process that this is a completely free offering. So we're going to be offering this the single interview to any college or university to post to your career services website. So you can reach out to us. Dina, if you want to click to the next page to find out, sorry, one more, to find out how to take advantage of this. We have a web page stood up. You can see the URL here, and don't worry, we're also going to be sending this out as part of our follow-up communication through NACE when it comes to this webinar. So we'll include all this information here. We'll include a URL that takes you right to this page. But if you're really excited to sign up today, this page is live, and you can go to this page and find out find out. You can be one of the first to find out when we're going to start standing up this offering. So we are at the goal line here. Probably we'll start to set up accounts within the next 2 weeks. Our commitment is that we will make sure that we get as many universities as we possibly can stood up before the school year starts. So we want to make sure that students are prepared once they come and can start to prepare once they come back to school and resume school year, whether that's virtual or whether that's on campus or it's a combination of the two. So we're going to be working really hard over the next couple of weeks to stand up as many schools as reach out to us or are looking for this process. What you'll see here also on this page is this is another item that we're going to be offering you as part of this. This video on how to take a HireVue. It's about a 3.5-minute video. It's specifically geared towards college students. And we're going to be offering that to you as well as part of the sign-up process. When we send you back your interview link that you can post, we'll also send you a copy of this video so that you'll be able to embed that on your career services pages along with the interview link so that students can view the interview or they can view the video before they start the interview experience. It just gives them some information about the HireVue process. It gives them tips and tricks for taking interviews in general, and they can use them related to the practice process. So again, we're really excited to be able to launch this year. We felt, again, it was really important going into, especially this fall season, that students were as prepared as possible for taking virtual interviews with companies, whether they take those interviews with HireVue or they take it with a different kind of technology. We want to make sure that we take that technology barrier out of the process and the student can really shine through with their skills and abilities. So that's one of our offerings for universities. Again, we were really excited to share this information today. Then in addition, and this is a way that we have been partnering with we have a number of university partners that use this today. So Dean, if you want to flip to the next slide. So this is sort of one level up, I guess, in terms of offering. So that last offering was a single interview. And again, any college or university can reach out to us and we're happy to provide that interview for free. This is there is a nominal fee associated with the service, but what you're looking for is something where folks within your career services, folks within your alumni group that are mentoring students, external coaches within employers, you want them to have access to the students' practice interviews, then this might be a solution that might be right for you. So we've done this with a number of schools around the country already. We've been offering this over the years, just as schools reach out to us, but we really want to make this more broadly available for colleges, again, knowing that there could potentially be a lot more employers looking to reach students in this way coming into this fall. We want to make sure that this is as broadly available as possible for any university to take advantage of. So Dean, if you want to slip to the next screen. This has all of the benefits on the student side of the practice interview that we just covered. But again, it includes the ability for anybody within career services staff or external mentors or coaches to access the students' interviews to provide coaching on interview performance. So it can be accessed by, again, alumni, external employer coaches to provide feedback to students on their performance on their interviews. So it's our full video interviewing solution where you can, and the career services staff would have the ability to stand up multiple programs, different position types for different program types, and then give the ability to either career services, other staff, or external mentors or coaches to be able to access those interviews and then evaluate the students and provide them coaching based on how they performed in the interview. So again, it's a full video interviewing solution. We're going to do a lot of work on the front end to help you with this deployment. We'll give you some pre-packaged and preset questions. We'll also include that short game package in here so you can include game exposure to your students. And but it can be deployed in as little as 2 weeks. So this is still a solution that if you are interested in something that includes the ability to see the interviews of the students and then provide them coaching, we can do that, and we can do it before the start of the school year for you. So again, it will include some pre-configured content, but the career services staff will have full ability to include as many different variations of interviews or interview programs as you'd like to offer your students. You can create an unlimited amount of custom interviews for your student base based on a major area of focus, whatever you want to focus on. This offering also will be given free to our historically Black colleges and universities. So in addition to the single interview free offering, we really want to work with our HBCU partners to stand this up on a more broad basis and provide that coaching and mentoring. We've got a couple of partners that are jumping on board with us here, and we'll have more information hopefully to share about that within the next couple of weeks. But we want to provide those students as much preparation as possible, and coaches and mentors the ability to get into the back end and help. So again, this will be provided free to any HBCU that reaches out to us. So finally, I just want to touch on a couple of other areas where we're partnering with our university partners. Sorry, I forgot to mention this. Also, you can go to the same site to sign up for information on this. So if you're interested in the practice and coaching side of things, not just the single practice interview, again, you can go to the same site to take advantage of that offering as well. Okay. There we go. So additional offerings on the university front, there's a couple of other things that I just want to touch on so that everybody is aware of how we might be able to help you better prepare for this coming fall season. You can go ahead and go to the next slide, Dina. So Dina mentioned this as part of transformation for this coming fall. A lot of employers are looking at, and a lot of career services are looking at virtual events or virtual career fairs or something like that. And we take a little bit of a different spin at it at HireVue. You know, just based on the way we sort of see things and the way things have evolved, these become almost more sort of ongoing conversations. Obviously, there won't really be an opportunity likely for a really large scale event on campus, a traditional career fair. And so the way that we've sort of rethought this with a couple of schools already is, can we provide a platform for more ongoing engagement and conversation? So can we make a big push around an event in particular, but make sure that we have some way to do some sort of ongoing engagement with that? So we're doing that through some configuration of our video interviewing platform. And we're calling the offering sort of virtual events or virtual employer events. This gives the ability for the Career Center to offer some way for employers to engage with students virtually. But it offers the benefit of really giving an ongoing engagement rather than just a one-time or one-shot deal. So it doesn't have to be a one-time event. It can be something that's spread across time. Again, that's one of the advantages of doing something that's a little bit more virtual and a little more asynchronous. So this is something where, again, we are happy to have a conversation with any of our career services partners about how we might be able to get these sort of virtual events stood up for you, and then how you could use our platform to engage with more employers. And just one or two other things to mention here. We are having a number of conversations with a couple of universities on the admissions front, and have one or two partners on this front. A number, again, of colleges as they're looking towards next year's admissions process and not being really sure, especially during that critical time period from the November timeframe until the early winter, where we think there might be a chance that maybe students won't be on campus and won't be able to go to campus for those admissions programs that include in-person interviews or some sort of interview process or some sort of in-person vetting process. Or in a number of situations, especially at the graduate level, where there's a full-blown sort of competency-based assessment that's done as a part of that admissions process, how there might be the ability to sort of move that into a virtual means, right? So both on the video interviewing front and on the video assessments front, or the assessments front, we are happy to have conversations with you about what we're doing on that front to help make the admissions process a little bit easier if it's a virtual process that we're going to be going into this year. And then, of course, Dina mentioned our traditional hiring For faculty and staff, we have a number of colleges and universities that we partner with to help them hire their professors, their faculty, their university staff in general. So lots of great case studies across the board for universities that we've been partnered with for years on that front, and sort of our traditional use case that translates over to our employer side. So those are some additional university offerings that we have today that, again, we're happy to have conversations about. That page again, feel free to go there. That's our university page, how we engage with all of our career services and university partners across the board. So feel free to let us know if you want to have a conversation about any of these areas. Dina, is there anything you'd like to add on these additional university offerings specifically?
Nope, I think you covered it.
So I think that takes us to the end. And again, I mentioned before that you can engage with us on this university page. We're happy to have a conversation. We'll reach back out to you. Obviously, I know there'll probably be a lot of interest in that, potentially in that free practice offering. So we'll, again, be taking information here. We'll be sending out a communication after the webinar from NACE that'll give you a lot of great detailed information. We'll include this site, but like I said, we're happy to take your information there today, and we'll be working to stand up schools with this free practice interview, as well as the interview and coaching starting within the next couple of days. So we're really excited to offer these. We really appreciate everyone's time today. We're happy to take some additional questions if there's time for them, and we've got them. I know we've had a couple of things rolling in on the chat.
Yeah, I do think we have a little bit of time, and there have been a couple of questions. I answered a couple things directly in the chat, but I think it'd be good to speak specifically about what it is we are assessing. So a couple of questions around, gosh, what is it that we're assessing? I've read the words facial recognition a couple of times. So good opportunity to talk a little bit about what these assessments are really. So anything that we've discussed today that's assessing behaviors and competencies, those are assessed through interview questions. We're really taking the response that the candidate is sharing, and that is what is being assessed. We do not do anything involving facial recognition, nor is anything from the candidate's face at all factored into the overall assessment. We have different ways that we deploy our assessments, and many of our customers really like the faster option, which is the fact that we have done 15 million interviews throughout HireVue's history, which means we have a lot of good data that we've been able to validate in the form of competencies that we use for those interview questions. And so we have the ability to go live quickly through a rapid deployment plan, because we know that those questions are the questions to ask for those particular competencies. And again, we're analyzing the actual text response. We're not analyzing anything that has to do with the face. From the game's perspective, the gameplay itself, the output of that is the assessment. And so there are varying levels on the game. They get harder as you pass levels. They get easier as you might need a retry on a level. And it is that output that is actually giving the score together. Every candidate gets one overarching score that's an aggregate of how they did on both sides. And then we also have a deeper dive, a manager report that shows employers or universities, whoever's using the assessment, a breakdown of how the candidates did. And so, for example, I could be a top tier candidate, but then you'll see, well, maybe I scored advanced on, one specific cognitive skill, but I scored more on the beginner or the middle range for my pattern recognition skills. And so we offer a breakdown there as well. So very much appreciate those questions and the opportunity to talk a little bit more about that piece. I'm gonna scroll up on the chat, let's see.
And I'll just add really quickly that, just because there seems to be a lot of recent debate on the subject, and Dina did a beautiful job of explaining what, we do and what we don't do. We absolutely, at HireVue, we don't at all we completely support the skepticism around facial recognition technology. And we understand why we get sometimes lumped into those discussions. The interesting part about what we do is we actually already know who people are when they come into our process. These are people that have identified themselves to employers and raised their hands for jobs that our employers have open, and are providing their contact information and details as part of that. So we already know who people are. It's not a part of what we do as part of our analysis of the video. And again, we also believe that the technology is just really early in its infancy in terms of facial recognition, and we support everything that's going on right now around the skepticism and concern around facial recognition technology. It is not what we do, and it will never be what we do.
A nice way of saying it, Amanda.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to scroll up a little bit because there were a couple functional questions regarding some outputs that I just want to make sure that we have a chance to answer. So one good question, just to clarify, whether or not the questions in the gameplay for the practice interviews are customized for students with different majors. So maybe Amanda, if you want to take that one.
Oh, the practice interview.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't today. So the free practice interview is just a single instance interview, right? So it's just a single interview. We've put into that interview some of our common questions that elicit specific competencies. By the way, I didn't mention as part of the process, but we have and I think Dina mentioned as part of her overview, we have a graduate offering, an assessment offering that's very focused on eliciting specific competencies that are common across STEM area, and then a separate one for non-STEM area, college graduates for entry-level talent. And those competencies are actually very much in alignment with the NACE competencies also that are published. So some of the competencies that are in the practice interview are also those competencies that we're using, the questions that we're using to have students practice. But there's only one interview there. So I think the competencies that they're practicing are things, as I mentioned, like willingness to learn and adaptability, might be problem solving as well. The ability to customize the different kinds of interviews and different interviews by major, that would be the practice and coaching offering. That would give a school, sort of full reign to design as many practice interviews or mock interviews as they want for students by various majors. And of course, we'd be able to help you and provide you with example questions or example content, but that would give you the maximum flexibility to be able to design mock interviews for students by individual major, if that's what you wanted to do.
Great. And I will say, and again, so that's practice interview. On the employer side, things get adjusted, right, according to what makes sense. So that's when things get a little bit more configured. So there's a question, is there a link? Do students get a link of their completed practice interview?
They don't. So what we've done to configure the practice interview, they will receive a link after the interview that will allow them to come back and take the practice interview as many times as they want. And they can save that interview link in their email and use that to just sign up directly and go back again. So the way that we've configured that practice interview is that they have the ability to re-record their response as many times as they want. So as part of that practice interview experience, what will happen is they will record their response to the video question, and then it'll replay for them. And then if they want to practice that same question again, they can just choose to re-record it and practice it again. And they can do that as many times as they like. So for as much time as they have in a single instance. But again, they will receive an email from us that provides them a link to come back to that interview and practice again. So it just doesn't provide them with their actual interview, but they'll be able to see themselves practicing as they go along.
Awesome. There's a great question here. Candidate and student experience is important in the recruiting process. Are there any insights to the student reactions to the assessments in the games prior to a human touch? It's a terrific question. So from a HireVue perspective, we track candidate satisfaction scores and candidate net promoter scores. For the games and this interior experience for graduate hiring, the candidate satisfaction score is consistently in the 90th percentile. So candidates really like the experience. I think that the reason for that are a couple of things. Traditionally, the thing that people complain about with the recruitment process, especially with graduate hiring because of historically how long it takes, is that perceived black hole. Like, I interviewed with somebody in September, they're not extending offers until February, and I have no idea what's going on. Or I applied online and I never heard back. And so the opportunity for students and for candidates to have a chance to go through this experience so quickly and then hear from somebody in such a meaningful way is really impactful, and it lends to really positive feedback. Net Promoter Score is a metric that's ranged from -100 to +100. And so 0 is considered good, and anything north of 50 is considered exceptional. HireVue's Net Promoter Score sits in the mid-70s. So it's consistently positive, again, for those reasons that I just shared. And interestingly enough, the stats share that once a student clicks on this link and starts the process, they will finish it more than 90% of the time. So it's something that people really enjoy taking and really enjoy experiencing, which is great.
There was a question I noticed here, Dina, that talks about, this is somebody I know that was having some trouble with the chat, but it's asking about the practice room, so the practice interview, the single practice interview, as well as the practice and coaching. And if there was research, or we would allow for research to compare the two. We would love to work with somebody on research, sort of comparing those two methods of preparation for interviews. So if that person is still on the line, if you'd like to reach out to us directly or reach out to us through NACE, we're happy to have a discussion on research. Our IO team specifically, we have a pretty robust industrial and organizational psychology team internally, and they are constantly having conversations with different universities and about research projects and research interest. So we're happy to have a chat in this vein. I think that would be a really interesting piece of research to pursue. So we're happy to have that conversation. I think there might be a few more questions that came in.
I am scrolling, let's see.
It looks like some folks might be having some trouble with the university URL, so I apologize for that. We will make sure, again, that we get the direct link out to you as part of the follow-up from this webinar. It will include the direct link to this university page so that you can register to hear from us as soon as we're ready to start standing up these practice interviews in the next couple of days. So if for some reason the URL that's listed here isn't working for folks, please don't worry. We will make sure that everybody as a part of this session gets a follow-up email with direct information and links that you can use to register. And thank you. So one of our teammates, Chelsea, is on the call as well. And for anybody that's interested in chatting with our IO team, she posted in the chat the email that you can use to reach out to our IO team internally. So for the person who had the research question, that would be a fantastic email to use to reach out to our IO team.
And I just corrected, there was just a typo at the bottom of that slide. So I just corrected that. So you should be good there.
Okay. I think it looks like we've addressed most of the questions that have come in. Oh, great. And it looks like the URL is now working. So sorry, everybody, about the typo on the slide, but that new URL that Dina just put up should work for everybody. And again, I promise you will get it in follow-up to this webinar in email format. So I'm glad there's so much excitement and folks wanting to sign up. We're really, really excited to offer this for the fall. So we want to get as many folks as we can into the pipe so that we can start getting people set up.
It looks like there's one final question here on the Net Promoter Score information that I shared. That is actually assessed on anybody who completed the interview. So they don't know if they got the job yet. They don't know if they're moving forward in the process. So it's captured once they submit their HireVue. It is not captured after they become employees or they're rejected. So it's a nice way to get some candidate feedback before the candidates actually know whether or not they're moving forward.
There was one quick one that came in that I'll just clarify around the games if that wasn't clear as part of the practice interview. So there are games as part of that single practice interview. There are 2 games that are sort of short form play that are a part of our cognitive set of games. And they will be available in that practice interview. They're not necessarily targeted, again, at any type of job in particular. And that's actually not really the way that our games in general are designed. They're targeted to elicit competencies and sort of skills and abilities. They're not necessarily targeted at any particular job function. So those in the practice interview are just 2 of our cognitive games, short play of 2 of our cognitive games. And I think I just answered one of the new ones that came in too.
And I'll also say, because I think one of the ones came in, like, do candidates know what they're being assessed on? It's actually a really important piece of our assessments in general. It's something called face validity. And so candidates get, and you'll go through, anybody who goes through the practice, you'll kind of go through this and experience what it's like. But the candidates are told sort of interview questions, game questions, how they're being assessed, what it's paying attention to. And then when you go through the game itself, it's what really differentiates us from other games that are out there, in that you're going through it and you know exactly what you're being assessed on. So if it's a memory type game, it's very evident that it's a memory game. And so we're really passionate about making sure that candidates and grads know what they're being assessed on and why it is. It just enhances that experience.
I think that probably wraps us up. I don't see anything new coming in on the chat. That was all the content that we wanted to cover with everyone today. So really appreciate everyone's time today. Again, very excited to be offering some of our new offerings for the fall with some of our university partners. And again, also to benefit our employer partners as well. The better prepared students we feel the better prepared students are for their virtual interviews, the more their authentic selves are going to shine through. So we're really excited to be working with the universities as well coming this fall to offer those. Okay, we'll wrap up then. Thanks everybody for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, it was great.
Thank you to our presenters for a very informative session, and thank you participants for attending today's session. This officially concludes the webinar, and you may now sign off.